Hey everyone, it was the first round of the British Chess Championships today in Torquay, and I'm going to go through a game between Michael Adams and Jack Rudd. Now Adams is actually the second seed in this tournament behind David Howell, and there were many surprises in the first round today, and in this tournament there seems to be a lot of very good dark horses that you need to watch out for. So in this game, Jack Rudd was playing white, Michael Adams was playing black. White played e4, Adams played e5, and knight to f3, knight c6, bishop c4 and bishop c5. Here white played c3, preparing the move d4. Adams played knight to f6, developing a piece, and d4 is played by white. Adams captured on d4 and c takes d4 and bishop b4 with check. So white obviously has to block this, so bishop d2 is played. And there's two moves that are played now in a lot of games. Bishop takes d2 is actually a main move. And after knight b takes d2, d5 is usually played, followed by captures and captures. Queen b3 here is seen in a lot of games, where now white can play knight to a5, attacking the queen and the bishop at the same time. So, white can play queen a4 check, knight c6, queen b3. Black has the option of playing knight to a5 here, and going into for a free-fall repetition, or they can play knight c7 and both sides castle with an equal game. But Adams didn't go in for bishop takes d2, instead he went in for knight takes e4 here, and this allows now white to capture the bishop on b4. Adams captures on b4, and Jack Rudd comes up with a nice move. I'm not sure if this is theory, but I think it is. Bishop takes f7 with check. King takes f7 and queen b3 check, and once d5 is played to block the check, white throws in knight to e5 check for good measure, and Adams played an interesting move, moving the king forward, king to e6. I think this is actually a really underrated move because it's easy to play, let's say, king e8, and black has lost casting rights. After queen takes b4, it's not clear what black's plan is. And I feel like if the king moves backward, white will gain the initiative. So Adams played king to e6, and what he's doing is preparing for the endgame. Because after queen takes b4, Adams plays queen to f8, hitting the f2 pawn with the knight and queen, and also threatening to swap queens off. White can't play queen d2 to defend this because the knight's covering that square, so white's forced to trade queens in this position. And of course, two pieces attacking f2 once again, so white plays a nice move, just f3 to hit the knight. And there's two options here for black pretty much. Knight d6 was one option, but I think this succumbs to knight c3, and I think white gets the better of the game here. Knight to f5 hits the d4 pawn, but white can castle queenside. After c6, rook he1 and king to d6, followed by f4, knight h6 and g3. White's got a very solid setup here, and really shouldn't have any problems. The only problem is maybe the d4 pawn is a bit weaker, but the dark squares now belong to white and the white squares belong to black. In the game though, Adams played knight to g5, and apparently this has happened in a similar game that Aronian's played. White castles here, Adams plays king to d6, knight c3, maybe preparing knight b5, so Adams plays c6, and f4 from Jack Rudd, hitting the knight on g5. So knight goes to e6, attacking d4, and luckily knight to e2 defends the d4 square and the f4 square at once. In the game, Adams played g6 here, but b6 was actually given by the computer. I think this was due to bishop to a6, opening diagonal for this nice bishop to rake down here. If rook ac1 attacking c6, play c5, and suddenly black's launching their pawns forward. If d takes, then b takes, and if white plays, let's say, a passive move here like g3, black can start punishing white with bishop a6, and if rook f2, play moves like g5 and really start harassing white's position. White instead has to be really active and play moves like b4, and if c takes b4, play rook c6, and black can play king e7. White builds a nice structure on the c file, but black's still okay after bishop d7, rook a6, bishop c8, rook a c6 and a5. Here black is given as ever so slightly better. I think this game will be a bit of a slog, but I think black actually does have a better position, just due to how far these pawns are pushed up. Here though, Adams played g6, maybe preventing f5, and white plays rook ac1, maybe preventing the pushing of this b pawn. So Adams now just starts launching his pawn up. This is very alpha 0, a5. Rook c3 is played, and just a4. The idea is just to gain a big space advantage, maybe even play a3 and really cause white some problems in the late endgame. Rook h3 was touted as a move that white could have played, attacking h7. After knight takes d4, the problem is that the bishop now hits the rook on h3. After knight captures, black can play bishop takes. After g takes, black can play g5, and white's in some real difficulties. If knight d3, captures twice and just play rook e8, and suddenly after b5, black's starting launching all these pawns up. White's got 2 knights for the rook, but black definitely has the better position here. So rook h3 isn't really on the cards here, and this is why Rudd played g4, stopping any discovered attacks. Adams was very crafty here, he played rook to a7, so inadvertently defending this h7 pawn. Rook h3 is played, and here actually the computer gives a3 as a really good move. So not defending the h7 pawn straight away, instead attacking b2, and once b3 is played, then play b6. So Adams could have gone for this. I think the point is that this a2 pawn is going to be really weak in the endgame if black can ever get to it. And again, this is very similar to Alpha Zero's style. But in the game, rook h3 was played, and Adams just played b6. I suppose he can play a3 at any point if he wanted to. Rudd now hits black with f5. Adams captures on f5. And here actually, I feel like white missed a win. And this is what the computers say as well. In the game, g takes f5 is played, but actually rook h6 causes black a lot of issues because the knight is pinned and this pawn is pinned against this rook. So for instance, if black takes on g4, white can just capture on f8 and they can't recapture due to the pin. Black can play rook g7 to pin the g pawn to the king, but here white can just play knight to g3. And if f4 is played, just play king h1 because these pins still exist against black's rook and king. If black plays a move like king c7 to get away from this pin, knight to f5 is just ridiculously strong, attacking the rook on g7. And actually black is forced to give up the rook here. Rook fg8, knight takes g7, captures, and knight to f3, protecting d4, followed by c5 and h3. Don't get me wrong, I think white's got a lot to do to convert this into a win, but it was definitely better than what happened in the game. So black doesn't have to play king c7 in this position. Rook g5 is actually given as the best move. And this goes after h4, and this is because black's going to sack the rook for the e5 knight. After takes, king takes, rook h5, king d4. The point is that now black's going to try to run these pawns down the board. So they sack the exchange. So knight to f5, king d3, rook takes, and d4. King g2. White definitely has the advantage here, but it's definitely not easy. For instance, black can start running the c pawn, maybe even play bishop to a6 at some points. So black has a pawn extra, but is the exchange down. So it would make for a very interesting game indeed. So it's a shame that Jack Rudd didn't go for this. But in the game he played g takes f5, and I think this was obviously a mistake, because Mickey now just cleans up with rook g7 check, king h1, and now plays rook to f6, guarding this h6 square. And of course white can't capture this knight due to the pin on f1. For this reason rook c1 is played, renewing the attack on the e6 knight. But now Mickey finds the tactics with knight takes d4, the knight captures, and the knight on e5 is left defenceless, so captures. Knight takes c6 is played, king d6, and knight to d4 to guard f5, but everything just gets traded off now. Bishop takes, knight takes, rook takes. A check is given. After rook g6, white plays rook takes h7. And even though it's 3 pawns each and 2 rooks, black's definitely got the advantage now. Michael Adams just shows his class now. He plays it simply, rook to f2, rook c7, and he just doubles on the second rank, and white is just powerless here. Rudd plays check, king e5 and a check again, But after king f5 there's not really much you can do. If rook d6 in this position, Mickey can just play takes, check, and just play rook d2 to protect the pawn, and rook h1 is mate. So king g1 is forced, and black can just play b5. This is a terrible position for white to be in. The game is no better though. After rook c e6, rook h2, king g1, check, king f1, and Mickey just cleans up with rook takes b2. Again, h1 will be threatening mate, and here actually white resigned. This is mainly due to the fact that if king g1, Mickey will just play rook check again. After king f1 they'll take the other pawn, and again mate is threatened on h1. The king goes back, and of course black can play moves like rook b2 to protect these pawns and just start launching them down the board, so it's pretty much game over. So all in all, I think that was pretty much silky smooth for Michael Adams in the first game. Obviously, if you're a strong GM, it's important to get off to a winning start, especially since there's only 9 rounds in this tournament, and some other players have already faltered. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please drop me a comment or like, or subscribe to the channel if you want to watch more, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.